It's 7:01.
Okay, well, let's call this meeting to our order. I did mean to turn off that Westminster chimes, but I didn't. Anyway, everybody saw the minutes for the September 23rd, 2020. Do I
Yes.
have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Thanks, Colleen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So those are approved. I received a late text from Mike. He's not able to attend tonight. Work happened. So, Ed, since we had the meeting yesterday and everything, and Stephanie and Ken as well, I'm just wanting really some updates primarily, or that's why they were on the agenda. Did anything, I mean, yesterday's meeting was really all about millage increase and looking at that. Was there any significant changes or actual receipts from the projections of 2 weeks ago for EIT?
Well, no, Ken and I pulled the results as of today,
Oh, thank you.
and the earned income tax is, compared to last year, is off by 2%. We had forecasted to be better by 1.75. That says we're basically 3.75 off a budget at this point, which is about where we were 2 weeks ago. We're still watching it, but I guess, Ken, you could add some color, but there's not much coming in.
No, there's not much coming in. We've just been getting small amounts. The last one I got was about $12,600. Today I got local services tax of about $2,200. So nothing really significant. And we'll see what the reconciliation says to us at next week as far as October is concerned. So like Ed said, we're keeping an eye on it, and we're down 3.75% with the forecast. So as everybody knows, building permits have been very strong. They're up $315,000 over last year. Transfer taxes are down, about $75,000 from the previous year. But it's just need one sale at a piece of property here in the township, and that could pull us even or above last year's figure. But what else is here?
Well, real estate taxes are where we thought they'd be. So
Yeah,
that-
but what about delinquent? Ed, you or Ken said something about delinquent real estate taxes. And I see your hand, Joe, sorry. But what about delinquents?
Delinquents have been fine. So far, we've received close to $39,000 in delinquents. And I believe our uncollected amounts of as of 12/31/19 were around $40,000. So, like I said, we've received about $39,000 in delinquent taxes. And, that gets divvied up, amongst the different funds. And so far, we're ahead about $4,500 over last year in the general fund for delinquent taxes. So we're doing okay.
Joe, sorry.
Yeah, two minor issues. In the conversations, it would be nice to be consistent with dollar values as opposed to percentages. Like we talk about EIT about down 3.75%, but I'd like to quantify it in dollars, because if you're keeping a tab and then you talk about another item, which is $50,000 less, $50 more, $4,500 less or minus, it would be nice just to be consistent. And the other thing too is, if something is off by less than $10,000 on a year-to-date basis, I don't know if it's really worth mentioning.
Well, I asked about the delinquent. That was kind of my fault.
Okay, I understand. As I said,
Now,
very minor, but
let me answer your
keep a
first
running
question.
tab and you say, okay, EIT is down 3.75% Well, what does that quantify into dollars?
Well, we had that number.
I'll be happy to turn it into dollars for you, but the answer to your first question is that all of these forecasts are being done at relative to what we budgeted. So they are, in fact, as we talk about it on a forecast basis, we are talking about what percentage they'll be down. You'll find in all of the write-ups about EIT that it's percent that's mentioned. So
Understand, then we ought to talk about if
1% is
if
for
perm- if permits are,
$40,000.
if permits are up 5%, then we ought to talk 5%, not $50,000.
I like the dollar figures because I do keep a running tab, so to speak, of, and not of every single revenue. So, and before, when we were looking at budget to, the forecast, it was what, about almost $150,000.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I'm looking at the sheet, the preliminary budget past three forecast versus the budget at that point in time. And then I don't know what figure you just gave us. You said you were down, but what is the actual EIT?
So we were forecasting it at the same place in that sheet as we're talking about today.
Okay. What's actual at right now?
It's at 3.75. It's actually a hair worse.
I meant dollar wise. To get back to Joe's question, do you have that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Well, you're talking about actual to date, Brenda?
Yes.
No, but she wants a comparison to budget, so I don't have that.
Okay, no.
I just, even if you would just give us the actual to date, that would be,
Actual to date, it's 2,720,000.
okay. I had some stuff pulled out from last year. I have way too much paper around me right now.
Yeah, and the budget is only in total, so we don't
Right.
prorate it.
Capital expenditures, usually it's about this
All right,
time.
so for the next two items that you have here, we are in the midst of the next round of discussions with department heads. Capital's one of the items on it. And fund balances will come out at the end of it, but over the course of the next 3 to 5 days, those next and final interviews will take place and the forecast will be updated. I don't have much to tell you about capital at this point. The only one I can really talk about is the one for remediating the audio in the meeting room. I don't see any way in hell we're going to get to do it this year, but because we just can't get the time to focus on it. But that's a $25,000 item, and there's many other bigger ones that some things are getting done. The rapid flash beacon is finished. The bridge part was almost finished, though I did see someone use it tonight. And the bridge part wall repointing is done. So there's numbers of things that are getting concluded.
Usually this time we try to figure out what, here's a percentage situation about.
Right. I'm not in a position to do that other than tell you, I'm pretty sure that $25,000 is going to move from this year to next year.
That's a small amount. Okay.
Yeah.
And
And the fund balances, of course, will come out
out after.
after that. So other than that, I'm not in a position to update anything tonight.
Questions, comments from other members of the committee? Okay.
No.
So jumping down to 2021 budget, why don't we do this in reverse order? Go to 4C, the review of the most recent 5-year tax plan, just so everybody knows where we are.
Well, presumably everyone had the packet we put out. And that got discussed at a meeting yesterday. I believe this entire group was copied on the package. we pretty much went back to where we were to start, with the exception that with the help of Bob pointing out that we were a little fat in the debt service fund. And once adjusted for that, we would live with a 3/4 of a mil tax increase in 2021. I can say to you that, Bob, thank you for catching it. We actually missed that one. In fact, if you go back to the very first exhibit that was shown yesterday, which was where we started 2 weeks ago or a week ago, you look at the debt service fund, you'll find it was much lower. That's the one with the October 20th date on it. It was at a much lower figure than subsequent years, and I just simply missed that as I moved through the scenarios, I allowed the debt service fund to get too fat in the early years. We did do some work on this today, and if you would allow me to, I can show a screen that can explain a bit on why there needs to be a balance in that fund, and everybody could take a look at that if you'd like.
I think it's fine, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, go for it. Share your screen, please.
All right. Let's see if I can get the right one.
Well, Ed's bringing that, oh, never mind. You did that quickly.
Here's the initial chart that I was referring to, which takes us back to 1020. And although this probably still wouldn't have met with the pure pleasure of Bob Salonek, if you look at the debt service line, you'll find it was much less meaty in that rendition than once we started going down the page to scenario 1, that baby started popping up and we just didn't catch it. So that tells you where we were. Now today, we worked on this some more, and you can see we've got a different line for debt service than we had before. We have the 3/4 of a mil in this year, and we'll come back to this and I'll explain all this in a second. But let me first show you this. This chart, can you guys read this, by the way?
No.
yes.
Yes.
I can when I'm sitting this close to my screen. Ah, that helped. Thanks.
There you go.
But I can't see the end of it now. I got pictures in the way. There we go. Is that better? Maybe I go one more step. There we go. All right, this is the debt service worksheet. It shows all the bits and pieces, principal at the top, interest at the bottom. There's basically 4 tranches that are shown on here. The original one, tranche 2, which is the loan that just came in for $3 million, which is for the repayment of the general fund and for curbs. Tranche 3 will be for the community center when that happens, and you can see that happens in 22 here. And tranche 4, which has nothing on the line, is where the Chapman Road Bridge would show up. And by the way, that would show up over here in the next column over. So if you come down here to the bottom, I've added up all of the interest from the top. And I would point out to you that we start to really receive that interest on or about April of any given year, April, May. And that then has to last us through the whole year. And since we pay our interest payments on a monthly basis, it means that when we come to the end of the year, we still have January, February, March, and April that we have to pay, and we have to have fund balance to cover that. So what this computation down here says is if I take this total interest that I've had to pay 4 months, this is 12 months worth. The line underneath is 4 months. I need to have a structure that looks something like this left at the end of the year in order to pay the first 4 months until we get the next tranche of real estate tax in. So I can't show both of these screens simultaneously, unfortunately, in this system, but you'll see that something in the 140, 35, 45 region is right in here. We can't do anything from here on back. Here, it would have been okay to be 115 because we are only dealing with, we're dealing with less.
So Ed,
Yes.
from my perspective, and I still don't understand the monthly interest payments, but that's for a later date. So that 4-month interest is really what your ending fund balance should be.
Right, so if we come back over here and we blow this up and look at the debt service line, you can see that this is kind of in the right ballpark. This is obviously too high. This is higher than we need, but this is the year I take it down and get it leveled out towards where it should be as we get out in time. So I think we're on the road to the right answer here. I would also point out to you that in this scenario, we did manage to get the general fund back to where it needed to be. And the total difference between what we had said last year and what we're saying this year is now 0.775 mils. So it's actually a little lower. The only thing I don't like about this plan is that it does take us up to a millage and then it steps back from it for 3 years. As a resident, I like this. As an administration type, I'd rather we got to a level and stayed. But this bubble that's in here, 21 and 22, really is the Pebble Ridge Woodridge spending. And you'll note that, for example, roads and bridges goes up and then comes down in millage, because and that is the bump that's associated with Pebble Ridge Woodridge. And this is 1.75 mils out here is what sustains the ongoing roads and bridges program after that's over. Now,
But there's a lot.
this is not the final plan. I'm not about to distribute this or send this out, but because we need to do the forecast first, we need to see how all that tunes up and whether there's further adjustments needed. But this at least gets all the chairs kind of pointing in the right direction.
And
Ed,
Ed,
but
given,
what it does do is point out the fact that we're looking at, in my mind, the biggest emphasis should be on the 2020 budget. And we all know historically numbers over time have improved because of forecasting techniques, conservative, et cetera. So, I understand the need for, I'll call it an accrual, but I think we do, we ought to be observant to the fact that in 2021, the number is overstated and it supports a less than what was, I guess, proposed in the scenarios where there were a bigger increase in 2021 and then no increases in subsequent years. So I'm comfortable with the fact that we lower the debt equity debt service number in 2020 and 2021.
And we'll see what happens in 2023. I mean, with COVID out there and a conservative. And one of the questions I wanted to ask yesterday, and I may have asked it and forgotten the answer. as far as revenue, real estate tax revenue, is there any assumption for assessment growth during the 5-year period?
Oh, yeah, it's a very modest one. It's like 1/4%. It goes on per year. It's just very, very slight slope. We watch that, but it does go up, but it goes up very slowly.
Well, with the Toll Brothers, I mean, that might be a year where you're going to get a bigger kick than usual. I don't know how many of those properties are going to be coming online, but having lived through housing developments being added, sometimes it's not as smooth. So if that comes on in 2023, you know.
Yeah.
So that's another, assumption that could change.
Yes, so that's, let's see, let me look at the agenda here.
Ed,
That's the
the,
most
the-
recent.
Ed, the Toll Brothers development, is that in the projections?
Not specifically, but I think we have the number for building permits at a size where you'd say it's in there somewhere.
Okay,
We
I mean,
didn't, we haven't explicitly laid out all the households over the next
at
5
some
years.
point, though, that should be easier to do and give you, a better guesstimate. But anyway, questions about where we are from the group? I think everybody was watching yesterday. Eric doesn't,
They were spellbound, I could tell.
is that what you call that? Okay, so,
of note is we do have some, Joe Van Hooten's online, and we have some other residents that are there tonight, which is unusual. And welcomed, by the way.
yes, and actually, if people want to identify themselves, that'd be great if they're here, because I'm wondering, because of DTMA, I'm not really certain. That might be helpful to us. Stephanie, is that okay?
That's fine. They want to introduce themselves.
Sure, I'll start. My name is Henry Gariello. I'm an employee of Dewey Engineering, and I was just attending the meeting tonight to try to find out if there was any thing moving forward relative to hiring a construction manager for the community center project.
And that probably will be one of my last questions, Henry, before
I can answer that now, Brenda. That is still under review at this
Yes.
point. Mhm. Mhm.
okay, all right.
Dave is not on the call tonight. He's on vacation.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I noticed he wasn't there, but okay.
But everything is
have
still
any
under
ideas?
review. We're just starting with the architect right now. So we know we don't need anybody on board right at this minute, We just had our first kickoff meeting with the architect. And, Ken Ballard, the consultant on the feasibility side, and there's a lot of work and information to be gathered in that regard. And we're in the process of doing that right now. So.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate your feedback and thank you for letting me attend and I'll probably be popping in occasionally just to keep tabs on things. So I appreciate it.
And I'm sure you're going to stay for the rest of the meeting and greatly enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
If
you'd like me
he's
to,
smart, he'd
Brenda,
get
I
off
can
and
do
go
that.
get like hot
Yeah.
chocolate.
Yeah, I know.
His family.
Anybody else?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else care to introduce themselves?
Sure. My name is Joe Van Houten, which most of you on the screen are familiar with faces. So I'm the vice chairman of the DTMA. Dick Bach is also on the call. He's the chairman of the DTMA.
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Keith Haas, the Executive Director of the Doylestown Township Municipal Authority. I've been on before, and
Yeah, you have been.
anytime DTMA's on the agenda, I'll certainly be here.
And really, the questions that we can go back to this now. I'm just trying to understand. It's more of a Ken Wallace question, I think. And Ed tried to educate me about the amounts. I look at financial statements and everything.
I'm gonna put that chart up.
Sure.
So I will put in yet another one of my fine charts. It is this one. This is another worksheet from the interior of the township budget. Doesn't often see the light of day, but there it is. This number down here at the bottom is, with the exception of the 28,000 in there, is the amount of money that DTMA contributes back to the township in total. And it has, at one time, it had 4 pieces. There's a line here that's empty. There was some contribution that was made on some of our debt. That's long past. So there are now 3 components, one of which is rent for space. Another is paying for the fringes of the employees who are laboring on behalf of DTMA. All of those fringes are paid for out of the township's general fund. And so this line of numbers right here is what is reimbursed for that. These 2 numbers at the top are reimbursed into the township general fund. The 3rd line down is for workers' salaries who are directly 100% paid for DTMA activity, and some allocation for 6 of our employees, of our township employees who spend part of their time helping with DTMA. This dollar figure is in fact what that adds up to. This is in a specific fund within the township, the water fund called Fund 41. It is this set of values that the DTMA basically reimbursed to the township every month. And these are the totals that you see on the township's revenue page down here, way down here at the bottom, revenue from DTMA. That's what that figure is. It's the sum of those items. And this is everything else in the township in revenue, but they all sum together to produce that.
2 points from an accounting, and that's the reason why this question came up, because I had not seen DTMA financial statements, and Ken may know the answer to this, because the, oh darn it, you took away that beautiful chart. The amounts of 644 for 2019 and 661 that says cash payments paid to affiliate government from pulling services. I incorrectly assumed that amount included the benefits before. So my question to Ken probably is where do the benefits flow, or where are the benefits expensed and shown on the financial statements for DTMA, or anybody else on the screen from DTMA that might be able to help me understand that?
The fringe benefits and the rental and the reimbursement for the wages are calculated, as you well know, for an annual basis, and a transfer is done each and every month out of the general fund for the authority. And those expenses are going to what we call a miscellaneous expense, other services and charges for 57,932.17. And the fringes are paid out of that same line item, miscellaneous expenses, other services and charges. So the rent, the fringe benefits, and the reimbursement for the wages are paid out of that line item. That's
Well,
where they're booked in
where are
the,
Where are they on the financial statements? I mean, on the statement of cash flows. Why are they reported? Let's put the rent aside, because the rent makes sense. It's something totally different. But why are the fringes handled differently than salary and benefits? I mean, it looks like when I look at the DTMA, and it's $650,000. But then when I look at the budget of reimbursements, I don't know if we really should be calling that revenue. for the township, it's hitting at $1 million. I just want to understand.
Well, it is a reimbursement because we have the water fund, and that's when we do payroll, we pay our employees who service the water authority's operations system. We pay them out of Fund 41, and that's where that transfer lands as far as the reimbursement is concerned, out of Fund 61 in the authority side to Fund 41 on the township side.
So
As far
Ken,
as the fund, go ahead.
what we see then is just a reimbursement of township expenses and rent coming from DTMA. There's no profit from DTMA going into the general fund budget as revenue. Is
Correct,
that correct?
correct.
Okay.
Uh,
Because you have it as
Ed-
a revenue line, and I
Ed-
think that's what was misleading.
Yeah,
Ed,
We have it-
Can you
we
throw
have it
the
on-
slide back up? Can you throw the slide back up that shows the three components of the transfer?
and again, I'm fine with it. The rent makes sense to be reported someplace different. The salary benefits is what.
This-
And-
The
and the
thing
fact-
is that, the thing is,
It's
and
a,
I'm
it's
sorry,
a, it's a very minor point, okay? But just in terms of this, of the salary reimbursement, there's a budget, and this is minor, okay? But if your forecast is $1,050,000 and you have a budgeted 3% increase in salaries, that would be at least 30,000, which would be 30,000 over 1050, which would be 1080 plus change. Not a big deal. My concern is the fringe benefit calculation. I did some analysis for Ken Snyder when he was on the board, and a $50,000 salary had almost a 75% increase in benefits. Whereas we're talking about a 40% increase in, or 40% offset for fringe benefits as a contribution. And I'm not so sure, only because we've never seen the fringe benefit calculation. And I did my assessment based on my years in budgeting, cost accounting, cash flow, and break-even analysis. So not a concern is, but I need an understanding of what goes into the fringe benefit calculation. For example, time off, sick days, time not worked, holidays, et cetera, should go into the fringe benefit calculation because they're ultimately paid for, but not on an hourly basis.
okay, can I answer
So-
that question?
My question is, I'd like to see the calculation that goes into making up the fringe benefit contribution.
The calculation that they've come up with for as fringe benefits are concerned. And I work, I work closely with Quan that does the calculations, but for the water operators, if they're going to earn $60,000 in a year, which would include holiday pay, sick day, vacation, and things like that, that's part of the reimbursement, okay? Social Security wage, Social Security taxes are included in the fringe benefits. Healthcare is included in the fringe benefits.
Oh, it's not what's included. It's the calculation for hours worked versus hours paid. I'm going back to cost accounting 101.
I know
Okay.
you are.
There's a difference between hours paid, which when you're working 40 hours is 2080, and
Right.
hours worked or earned, which is typically around 1,600 to 1,650 hours. So those additional hours have to go into the overhead calculation. I mean, I've done this for 30 some years. And all I'm asking is, I'd like to see the calculation that goes into fringe benefits, because when I did it as a offline request for Ken Snyder, a $50,000 salary, all right, related to about $85,000 to $90,000 in total paid package with the overhead. So it's a simple question. You know, what goes into the calculation so I can compare it to my calculation that I've done for years for a break-even analysis.
So you're
Well,
just
like I
asking
said-
for a copy of the simple spreadsheet that shows the employee name,
That's correct,
percentage of hours, salary, fringe calculation.
correct.
They do for reimbursement, so that should be easy.
Yes, we
Okay.
have it and it is. Like I said, you know, the water operators, they get paid out of Fund 41 and the authority reimburses the township for the wages that are paid out of Fund 41.
And then all I'm asking is you send me that spreadsheet so I can look at it. That's all, because I may be off. You know, I may be wrong, but I'm going on my experiences in various backgrounds, manufacturing,
May I ask a question?
services, et cetera.
Can I ask a question, Joe?
Sure.
What are you trying to accomplish?
Just want to make sure that the number is correct
Our auditors think
and
they're,
understand, because
our auditors think they're correct.
we-
And
we're
we
un-
know
we're
that
under a
everything that-
budget, we're under a budget crunch on our end, and I want to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share. Not any more, not any less.
Well,
But seeing a number on a spreadsheet and saying, that's it, is not enough for me.
well, what,
I'm an accountant. I want to peel back the onion and I want to see what makes up the forecast for 2020 and the budget for 2021.
And if
I'm
the
not poking
auditors,
holes at anything. I'm just trying to understand.
if the auditor's fine with it, you had to submit a spreadsheet to them or some working papers. So I think he's just asking to see a copy of that so he can understand it.
Right.
That's not a problem. Also, too, you have to take a look at the authority's budget and under Schedule T, that's where the meat and potatoes are as far as the calculation is concerned for fringes and office rents and salaries. So, yeah,
this would be a lot easier if we were all together rather than Zooming, but my point initially, although I certainly like what Joe's talking about, was really that it's called a revenue item. I believe it's called on the spreadsheet, it's called revenue from DTMA. And really it's all reimbursement. Well, I don't know how you want to classify the $50,000 for rent. I'm more interested in the $1 million for salary.
It's up here under past.
Yeah, but pass through reimbursement, whatever. But so I have a question. Is there any profit that goes into any real revenue that goes to the township based on DTMA's operation? Or is it
No.
to be a great?
I just want to jump in here for one second and just say that as a municipal authority, we're using the term profit. We really don't generate profit. They're excess revenues over expenses that get placed into a capital improvement fund for future improvements for the authority. That money is specifically targeted for authority improvements. Our capital plan has about $15 million worth of improvements over the next 5 years. So,
And I believe you said that last time, or that we were talking about DTMA, and we may want to look at that more in the future. But yes, I know there's no profit, but there's also apparently no revenue either. So I was confused by
I think there's revenue. We do generate revenue
not the-
strictly from our customers, from our 2,700 customers. There is no tax contribution from anybody from within the township. The only revenue we receive is from 2,700 customers.
And I'm not talking about DTMA's revenue. I'm talking about how it passes through to the township. So there's no
Okay.
additional revenue going from DTMA to the township. It is strictly a reimbursement that. And now Joe's raised the fact about, looking at calculations and that type of thing, which is fine. I think it's salary and benefits are when they comprise 75% of any budget, and they may be higher than that at DTMA. It's something to be looked at. So everybody finished. I probably beat the DTMA question to death.
I'll make one comment. The capital improvement amount, that surplus that's put into is 15 million. The total budget for the township is 13 million and change.
The 15
Yeah.
million
Yeah,
is
has
over
nothing to do
a
with the other.
5 to 10 year plan. That's not just in 1 year. That's a 5 to 10 year
It's
capital
still-
plan.
But we don't have $15 million of cash in the township laying around for any 5 or 10 year.
Okay,
The
with all due
authority, the
respect-
authority
with
is
all due
totally
respect,
separate than the
apples and
township.
oranges here.
Yes.
There's
no
Totally
intention
separate
for that.
entity.
One
You have
has
to
nothing
remember
to
the
do with the
town-
other with regards to what you're talking about from a cash perspective. Okay, the municipal authority builds a budget and builds a forecast for future projects based on revenue and need. You do the same thing at the township level. So you can't compare one to the other.
Okay,
Well, wait, actually,
Yeah, actually you can.
yeah. Okay, Bob.
No, actually, you can't. Your revenue is based on taxes. Our
No.
revenue is based on usage that's collected through the customers.
That's correct.
Then lower
You're
the
a
rates.
component unit of the township.
There you go. I was gonna say.
Say that again?
You're a component unit of the township. You're not an independent agency.
Right.
No one said it was an independent agency.
So that the 15 million fund balance is part of township resident money.
It's not all.
I would
from the
disagree with that.
township, though. It's
Okay,
from their
well, we could
customers
disagree
which
with
are
it, but-
outside the township as well.
And I think you need to have a better understanding of how the municipal authority is structured with regards to the relationship with the township.
Yeah, I think that's our goal, Joe. I think that we've talked about it. And in January, that's one of our plans, is to get in detail with DTMA.
With regards to what?
With regard to the operation, so we have an understanding of how it operates. And what happens with the excess funds that are received every year, because there isn't revenue to the township,
It's not a revenue basis for the township.
correct?
But
Okay, whether the township ran it as a water authority or the way it does through a separate municipal authority, the funds would still have to be relegated for that specific use.
Mhm. I
Keith,
agree.
think you can support me a little more there with regards to that under the Municipal Act in Pennsylvania.
Mhm. And I think that's what we've all determined when we looked at the financials, that we need to get a better understanding of that.
I think the most important thing is that the DTMA for the residents of Doylestown Township continues to provide safe drinking water at an extremely competitive price and has adequate reserves to be able to maintain the system to the utmost of what the public should expect. So you don't have to worry about having the problems that other townships around us have had, where they ended up having to bail out themselves by selling their authorities. Our authority is extremely well-run, well-financed, and continues to deliver water at a very reasonable rate.
Well, we haven't looked at the rates or anything like that. It's just been some questions that have come up, and I think if everybody else is okay, I'm ready to move on from this tonight. Joe, thumbs up?
fine,
Okay,
fine.
all right.
I just need more information to make sure what is being done is fair. And I'm sure Joe Houghton, Van Houten, and the other gentlemen agree that I want to make sure that what we're transferring is an appropriate amount,
I just want to make sure.
not any more, not any less.
Okay. Ed, one of your other interesting chart was just the head count. You gave us head count for 2021. Do we want to review that team committee?
I don't have that with me. Or I may have it here. I don't know.
I don't have it.
What was on the agenda?
But from my perspective, the head count didn't go down far enough in detail. It went to a management level and then said, for example, in police said 21 officers. I think what we wanted, at least in my mind, is the names that make up those 21 officers. If there's 3 people in administration, finance, who are the 3 people in finance?
Why are their names important? I mean, if it's, you know, Jen, Colleen, and Joe, why are knowing their names? I mean, I mean, what, you know, we have positions, we have those, you know, we can give you positions. I mean, why are their names important? Next thing you're gonna-
Positions be fine.
Yeah, names aren't important. I was going to say to Joe.
No, you can redact the names, it's the positions.
Okay.
But well, my question was more looking at headcount for the current year and moving forward to next year. Again, I'm kind of beating on an old topic about you know, having all the positions filled, carrying the salary, and doing calculations of always having everybody employed. I think there was a couple of new positions that are in the budget for 21, right?
There's
Road,
only part in parks, well, public works / parks.
yeah, okay.
It's what's proposed. If the budget is approved by the Board of Supervisors, that would hopefully be filled in the first part of the new year.
Any idea what that position costs? Budgeted or estimated?
Probably similar to our current public works. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, we're in the 17 to maybe $20 an hour, depending on the person's qualifications. Ken, am I in the ballpark there off the top of my head?
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
So,
We're talking 40K plus pennies, which in my mind is another 30 or 30K at least, because medical is 23,000 per shtuk. Plus you have plus you have the FICA, Fuda, and all the other insurances.
Okay.
You're talking $70,000.
Yeah.
And the one thing is, Stephanie, when we tend to, and I'm being biased here because I'm on the Pension Advisory Committee. But when we talk about the Pension Advisory Committee, we flip that into dollars and say it's worth X dollars and X mils. But when we talk about salary increases and adding people, we talk about percentages. So when we talk about adding a parks maintenance person, we don't say it's $70,000 and a $250,000. But if PAC says we want to add over and above the MMO an additional payment of 150, it's immediately turned into millage. So what I want to do is trying to be consistent, just as I said earlier. If we're talking dollars, let's talk dollars. If we're talking percentages, let's talk percentages, but not waver between the two.
well, in this case, it's millage, and you're right, it's about 20.28 mil for.
The salary increases for 3% to the admin and the 3.5 per contract turns out to be 0.6 or 0.7 mils. But it's never brought up in the budget presentations. When we talk about MMO in the pension under PAC, we
No,
talk about an additional payment to bridge that liability, which is $2 million and change at current rates. We talk about dollars. So I'm just trying to be consistent across all the budget items that we talk about.
So there's one new position moving forward for next year. I don't remember what the head count was. I didn't think to print that out, Ed, what the total was.
It's either 58 or 59. I'm not sure which it is.
Okay.
Because there's full-time equivalents, there's part-times. We're adding a person in parks. We have the same number of part-time positions as before. So it's,
Okay. I saw something recently on Facebook about a specialist position being advertised. That wasn't a new one. That was,
No. Special projects coordinator who is leaving the township to take an assistant to the manager position in another community. And so that is a position that we're going to replace.
so everybody's been replaced, right?
It's being replaced. Yes. In the process of replacing, yes. Including 2 police officers.
Will that put us back at 100%
Yes,
capacity?
yes.
Right word is. Questions on
whatever that is.
head count? Any other questions on that? Ways and means. Colleen, you're very quiet this evening.
She's cold, remember? Hopefully she's.
I'm just taking it all in. I'm just taking
Okay.
it all in.
All right, anything else from the rest of the group on that, on those items? Okay. Well, Dave's not here, which I didn't know, but I bet Stephanie can give us at least some general information regarding sewer project and what's going on.
Yeah, and so can Bob and Joe Van Houten, and Colleen, because we're part of our little subcommittee for the neighborhood. We meet monthly on Zoom at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we go over with Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority the progress that they're making, and things are moving along with the sewer project. You know, there was a lot of rock in the neighborhood that they've had to deal with, but they're, you know, have overcome that. And they're, you know, have sort of a 2-pronged approach coming through part of the easement that's there, as well as through the streets. They completed various connections. Now I believe people on Westway can now connect, and the little treatment plan is up and operational. Curbing is being installed in the neighborhood. And Colleen, if you can use your Facebook. Now I thought about I was going to email you tomorrow, but this saves me time. I know there's some concern. Kelly Keegan reached out to me with the curbing and Halloween and everything. Unfortunately, with the rain we've had this week, you know, they weren't able to do some of the backfilling, but they've got lots of orange cones that will go out there, and because they're getting ready to do more pours next week. Water is, Joe can certainly talk this, but public water installation has occurred on Stony Lane Circle. And also they are working their way from Woodridge down, starting down Westway as well with the public water. So it's a mess out there. I've been out there. It's, you know, the roads are torn up. It is a total construction zone. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, buts about it. But I see progress. And I mean, I see all these utilities going in, and when everything is, you know, I just ask for patience. We update, you know, weekly on the website and everything. We get weekly updates from all the various utilities. And when it's all said and done, I mean, you're going to have a neighborhood that's, Bob, what, 50, 60 years old on average. Yep. And you're going to have, you know, in most of it, public sewer, public water in parts, new curbs, paving, new storm drains. It's going to be like a brand new neighborhood. And, you know, the nice thing I'm seeing are people calling and asking about, you know, buying and selling. So I think that's positive, you know.
I have a couple of questions. One, I don't live in the area, so this isn't as personal to me, but when will this be complete so we can stop talking about it?
Well, the
Sometime-
sewer is 10 weeks behind anyway, right?
Sometime next year.
Yeah. I don't, yeah.
In
The main
20
part-
People are
the main
selling
part of
because the
neighborhood is
real
supposed to
estate
be
market.
sewered by the end of December, the main part, and then they'll get to the Alms House Road section for the beginning of next year, as long as there's no further delays.
We're talking 2021.
Yeah.
Mhm.
2021.
Wrapped up.
The other,
That's just
We-
for the
we have-
sewer installation.
We have
Mhm.
spending, we have some spending, I believe, in 22.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
will.
top roads.
You
We're gonna
will for
top
paving.
22, yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be the final nice coating of the
It's
road.
the minor end of it, but it's,
And,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll come back. Well, because we want to make sure anything that settles or anything like that, which can happen in construction. But that'll be that.
Stephanie, I think the website could use an update. Last one is the 24th of September, I think. The question I'm getting is the backfilling from the curbs. But in particular, it's late in the season. Are they going to hydro seed? Are they going to seed? Are they going to sod? What's happening? And there is nobody from Gilmore around that I can find. And the workers don't really seem to know, as Dave and I have discussed. So I think
From
an
the curb, you mean?
yeah, for the curb. The website just talks about restoration of the lawns. The question right now is, it's almost November. Are they going to hydro seed when they backfill? Are they going to seed? Are they going to sod? Are they going to wait till next year?
I'm not sure.
will they have to do something
But-
capitalized?
And then the second question is, when the curbing is done, as most of it is on Pebble Ridge, is Marcy coming in this year to pave?
Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they were the questions I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Stephanie, let me just chime in. Bob, I don't think they're coming in for Pebble Ridge though, Stephanie, unless that changed to
Well, they
top.
already base paved, they already base paved, Pebble Ridge. They did that last year.
Right. So Bob, you asking about Pebble Ridge specifically after the curbs
Yes,
are in?
Pebble Ridge.
Yeah,
Pebble Ridge will be part of the top that we talked about for 22.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure we get all the base paving in and done throughout the neighborhood.
So they're gonna leave it as it is now
With the
until
base, yeah.
22.
Mm-hmm. Because Dave's concerned about any settlement that might occur. I know he's mentioned that a couple of times.
Okay, that needs to be on the website,
Okay.
because
okay.
it looks like it's ready to be paved.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of compliments from you. A lot of your neighbors called and was like, "Oh my God, this road's so great." And I'm thinking, wow, that's only the base. So
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
well,
so,
it-
it's so
Pebble-
bad where,
I thought we were done on Pebble Ridge.
yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
so
no,
bad
no,
in our
that's-
area. I wish it was like that.
I know.
So it's all
One other
relative, I guess.
question, just.
It's the
again,
people on Pebble Crest you need to talk to, Stephanie. Because they tore that up pretty much. They stored all the materials there. And never did a base coat there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put something out more definitive, it would
Mhm.
certainly be a place I can direct people to. Because
Okay.
I was under the impression when I talked to Dave is that Pebble Ridge was completely done this year with paving because all the curb work's done, all the new inlets are in.
That's not
Yes.
my understanding, Bob, but I'll verify.
Okay.
it.
And
And if
Stephanie,
I'm not
he may,
mistaken,
he
if
may
I'm not
change
mistaken-
that still may happen, Bob. I think they were discussing it. And I don't know, I don't know what Dave's final thought or answer was at that point. So.
Yeah, because the Marcy bid specifically said Pebble Ridge Road. And Pebble Ridge had a base coat last year.
Right.
So that's what's confusing.
So all you
Gotcha.
guys are hoping for a late winter or a late freeze, so the batch plants stay open.
Mhm,
I'd
Yeah.
just
You
like
got
to
that
know.
right. Yeah.
Know
mhm,
what the schedule is, because if you look at the website, it doesn't say anything.
Wow.
There's a map there, but that doesn't really.
There's a map,
tell
and
much.
it's pretty
Yeah,
detailed.
but the map isn't very definitive.
Mhm. So,
Oh, okay, one other quick question. This goes back to DTMA as well. How much, just give me a broad number, again, because I'm not, I've heard a lot of things. How much is the sewer assessment for homeowners in that area? Are we,
the line in the street is estimated at $34,000. It's a cap cost. It's in the ordinance, which is on the website. So it's cap cost.
but it's still, they have to come up with the $34,000.
There is a loan option. They can take a loan through it, which will be available as well at the interest rate that we got from.
And I remember, that I remember. But
But
what,
if you hook up, Brenda, there's a $6,200 tap-in
Those
fee.
those are private costs, correct?
And
Trying to
then
set
there's also
private-
connecting to the system from your home, which has been estimated at about 8,000, and here they've been running 7,000 to 10,000.
so we're talking about 40,000?
We're talking about $50,000.
And what about water?
I'm not in the water.
Water is less. We
I hope.
Yeah, we presented basically an all-in for the same costs, about $17,000, $18,000 in that neighborhood for water.
So Keith, that's not a capital project that the DTMA does?
No.
That's not in your
water.
5-year plan?
No, water main extensions, unless they have some sort of value to add to your transmission capability, are not typically conducted by the authority itself. They're usually capital contributions from homeowners. For instance, we do not need the pipe down Stony Lane Circle. That adds relatively no value to our system other than to connect 7 or 8 customers. So that's why we're asking for a contribution. They're not paying for the entire amount. The authority is contributing $2,500 credit. We publicly bid the job. It looks like it's going to come in on budget, as well as the authority has been kind enough to offer a 10-year financing option. So this authority has gone, taken a lot of steps to go above and beyond to make it affordable over the long term for the residents. And there's no mandatory connection ordinance. So you do not have to connect at all if you do not want to connect at this time.
I was just trying to get the household handle on
Yeah.
what the cash outlay might be.
Yep.
And I don't know even how many residents we're talking about in
250 properties,
how many?
250 properties.
250.
$8.5 million project, give or take.
Not for the water, it's 250 properties? That's not.
No.
The water does not have the same,
Yeah.
water doesn't have the same area. It's about,
Yeah.
I think, 100 and some properties for water.
Right.
Stephanie, no one's talked about the potential offset to the sewer project from Toll Brothers, if and when that new development finally goes forward,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a
Suppose
potential.
we've asked about it in the budget, Joe, and we keep telling it's being delayed, so
Yeah,
we're not too excited yet.
right.
As long
When
as
they
that
include it
project,
in the budget, then we'll get
slowly-
It needs to
excited.
be a bird in the
Slowly,
hand.
kinda,
It's not a
they-
bird in the hand.
Yeah, it's not, you're absolutely right, Colleen. I mean, I have said from the beginning, if and when, if, when it happens, do not count your
Exactly.
chickens before they've hatched. I mean, they are my knight in shining armor if everything comes to the table.
at least
but,
the eggs are still there.
They got
And
delayed
they're-
with COVID and, DEP has thrown up roadblocks right and left for them. But we are working really, really hard to get things moved along so that they can, come to fruition, believe me.
Right, but
I'm
at least in our
nervous
last
'cause,
conversations with John Butler, he said that they were, that the authority is making the corrections and changes that the DEP is looking for so that the project can move forward.
Yeah.
So at least they've overcome the hurdles that DEP has put out there. They didn't come up, put up a roadblock and say they weren't going to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, they've been, I mean, DTM, Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority has been bending over backwards with doing everything DEP, has wanted. And, DEP's throwing up things like, you didn't capitalize the B in Bucks at the bottom of your page, redo your plan. So, I mean, they're getting really, really picky. So, but, Jeff Garton and their solicitor are working on the development agreement, so that's a positive. But there's still a number of things that they need so they can wrap things up with the buyer or with the sellers and everything of the properties by the end.
Are you talking about?
Hmm?
How much money from toll or am I hearing?
About 3.5 million, or it's 3 million, 3.5 million, give or take.
Okay.
So
So
it's significant. It's very significant. Like I said, they will be my knight in shining armor if we can get them to the finish line here.
Yeah, I want them to also come around and do something for the park and rec like they did down in the Lions Park between Chalfont and Warrington. So they've got Toll Brothers there. So I think they ought to be contributing something to Doylestown.
Let's make sure, let's get them across the finish line first.
One
And
thing
get
at a
them
time.
township. 'Cause
Agreed.
if they walk, we're gonna be in, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be crying.
I certainly agree with that, but that park down there is kind of nice.
I heard it's very, very nice, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving along from sewer project and water to significant investments in infrastructure. Really, Stephanie, you asked about, you answered the construction manager piece.
Yep.
There was some mention of a timeline. I think at the last, or maybe it was last week's budget meeting, that it was being developed. Can you share anything with us on that? And we've had conversations, budget conversations about the timeline. Is there a deadline?
Well, it's the architect's projection at this point that, they could do a feasibility study and have things done in like December. And I'm like, Karen and I are like, really? Thanksgiving, Christmas, COVID, how do you do public meetings, et cetera? I mean, that's going to be, stakeholder meetings, things like that. So I think it was very sort of, what's the word I want?
Optimistic.
Optimistic. Thank you. That's the word. I knew it was an O word. It's getting late. So, I think it'll probably go a few more months out just because of everything they need to do on the feasibility side. And everything. But yeah, they were thinking they could, have plans and be ready to, bid things like, sometime in the spring or summer, like summertime. And I'm like, we can't get through the feasibility study. I mean, we're going to have to be very creative. And I think Baker Engineering, that's doing a feasibility study for us, is on one of the trail studies they're doing, is really coming up with a very creative virtual room. And if that works well, people in the project will be able to go to the virtual room and they're going to be able to check in and they're going to be able to look at the project with video and kind of move themselves around the room and ask questions. And it's all virtual. They're doing it for an I-81 project that they're working on. And it's going to be really cool. So I'm like, okay, we need to figure out how you can duplicate something like that. It's probably not cheap. That's my only concern. But we need to do something like that, or Zoom webinar kind of thing, So that's going to have to be done to, get that public participation and everything on the feasibility side of it.
Sounds like 5 months or so. Okay.
It's probably going to be at the end. I mean, I think we'll still end up finishing sometime, maybe not early summer, but late summer or fall next year, and be able to, I'm hoping, be a few months beyond, but I think it'll be great, really give us direction.
Any other business questions? I know it's early for us to end the meeting, everyone, but the budget is pretty much, got several people here on the call that need to be have a lot of work to do on it before it's hung on November the 17th.
Yes.
Mhm.
I had a real quick question. Have you guys ever looked at the investments, the investments that we keep, that we've been talking about kind of as a buffer? That, I guess it was $2 million that we keep as a buffer.
1.6, I think it was, yeah. Uh-huh.
Has anybody looked at how we've been investing it and whether we're doing it in the way that we should? I know we're keeping it really low risk intentionally, but.
I've
I
never,
think Ken, I think probably can address it, but I mean, I think we're kind of limited in what we can do.
Second class township,
Second class, yeah.
second class township. And, we instituted the Act 10, which we can invest in, commercial paper and money markets. But right now, the rates are so low at Pliget to get for instance, to get a 0.25 on a CD, you gotta go out 2 years.
Okay.
The rates are really, really low. In fact, I talked to Pliget because one of their investment portfolios, Prime, was at a 0.22. So it piqued my interest and I called them and they said, yeah, it's 0.22 today, but it's going to 0. In a week and a half, it was down to 0.12.
Wow. Okay.
And so, to get anything over 2% right now, you would have to go out 10 years.
Okay.
How about a
Thanks.
credit union?
one of the reasons why it hasn't come up, Jen, from my standpoint, is school districts are similarly restricted in what they can invest in. So I looked at the interest rate tonight in the budget document and, saw how much, I think there was $178,000 last year. And for next year, we're estimating 50 or something like that, even with the money
We
coming
didn't have
back.
the bond, we didn't have the bond principal sitting around,
Right.
money for the building, so we don't have as much to work with.
Well, you'll have that for next year, but it's still the interest rates.
Mhm.
Yeah, the interest-
Did you have any ideas, Jen?
No.
Brenda,
Just
any,
curious.
Yeah, oh my God.
Okay.
Are we allowed to use a credit union? Sometimes that earns a little more. No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Ken?
They usually don't do the CDs and stuff. I
Because
mean,
I know
just-
the counties is a little higher than the certificates right now. If you have anything in the credit union.
Yeah, but the county actually uses Pliget as well.
Okay.
So
Well,
they're
All governments do. Look at-
I'm new. I was just trying to help. you.
Oh, that's-
No, absolutely, absolutely,
That's
because,
fair. We appreciate your contributions. That's all
right,
conversation is welcome, believe me, especially when it
to be
comes to
honest
this.
with everybody.
When it comes to money, right? Yeah.
All
Well, to
right.
be honest with you, because right now we're earning 0.25 over at TD Bank. We've hit pay dirt.
Mhm.
On how much, Ken?
Well, that's where, the bond proceeds, and the note proceeds went into the TD Bank General Fund. So I looked around and the CD rates are so bad. And I noticed that the last bank statement that it's at 0.25. So I'm just going to leave it there for the foreseeable future.
So my only thought with the 1.7 million is we have that there. I understand as kind of a buffer, as a kind of a psychological way to keep us from worrying about running out of cash. But there's no other requirement for us to have that, right? It's just it's there just for our comfort.
Well, it's also there for Wall Street's comfort too, as far as surveillance and those type of things for the bond rating. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It looks good on the financial statements. Yeah, if there's, and it mitigates some risk as far as if we ever have a bad hurricane or another Sandy roll through here, or, God forbid, something worse. we have the cash set aside. I've always
Right.
been a big proponent of having, some type of rainy day fund and operating reserve as far as that is concerned. But, GFOA threshold is 10% of our, total expenses. And, then you would need on top of that, I believe there was another 20% on top of that.
Yeah, there's 20% and for the next year and 10% if it's long. So we really follow the 10% rule when we're looking 5 years out, but we're really okay at 20% for in close.
Yeah, but Jen, it's my understanding that in the 5-year projection that Ed did, that's included in there. So when you look at that number of less than 2 million, that's money in the general fund plus the rainy day.
It includes.
So it includes the rainy day. So, in 5 years from now,
There
per
isn't,
the 5-year forecast,
there isn't one.
there isn't one.
Right. Right. Well, I wasn't looking at
That's what's important about looking at, and in my mind, all of the funds, not only the general fund and their balances, to Ed's point and Bob's point last night, the amount in the debt service is an issue. We ought to be taking those hard looks because, if you look at all the funds and you find a $250,000, by analysis and whatever, that's a mill over 5 years or a quarter point. So it's, they used to say, or I used to say, and still do, cash is king. Okay, so, we ought to be looking at the cash, looking at those funds and doing our best to, sharpen our pencil and make sure those balances are good. If we have a rainy day fund, that's fine. But we don't need a rainy day fund in each account.
Funds.
Right. Well, one of the thoughts, I don't want to make this meeting go on any longer. We're about to wrap up and I brought this up, so I apologize. But one of the ideas I was thinking, and I know we've spoken about this before, is the value of using the funds to offset the cost of borrowing funds. So instead of borrowing funds where we actually have to pay interest, we could use some of our reserve. But if we're talking about keeping it so we have some liquidity, then that makes sense to me.
And
We have talked about, using cash instead of leasing, right, for equipment. I mean, that's a very simple example of ways that, that could be done, but, rates are low on a lease, I get it. But yeah, you don't want to be sitting on, cash is definitely king. But you should be very efficiently using your resources that are getting, that are taxpayer contributions. So if you
And I
can't
think-
earn the money on the cash,
investment.
you also shouldn't be paying the money on a lease. You should buy the equipment. That's just my opinion.
And I think that's a discussion we had, Jen, back in July when we were talking about borrowing money. How much do you really have to
Yeah,
borrow?
have to borrow, right.
Okay.
Always finding the balance.
Anything else?
Make the motion, Brenda.
Oh, I'm looking for somebody to make-
Motion,
Bob
motion,
made it?
motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
I think Bob made it.
Yes.
Second,
You can second it.
second.
I think we're finished for tonight.
Bye.
We'll see
Good
you.
night.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you in maybe at November 17th.
Yeah, have a good Thanksgiving.
Happy Halloween.